Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast Network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
Parenting with extrovert and introvert parents. Who are you? In a world that's consumed with quizzes, for example, pick 6 ice creams and find out what percentage cold-hearted you are. Or prepare an outfit and we'll tell you what kind of people you hate. Or even this phone quiz will reveal your personality type. It's easy to forget that there are a whole lot of great, really well-researched resources out there that will help you learn more about yourself and your family. And they're not concocted by random people online. Amongst these resources, the Myers Briggs Type Indicator, or the MBTI as it's known, is a prominent and useful tool which has the power to help people understand themselves and the way that they interact in the world around them and with the people in it. There are 16 distinct types of people in the MBTI profile. Now, this doesn't lock you in or confine you to your type's typical qualities, as growth is always something that should be encouraged. But it can help you know where you're starting. The beautiful thing about the Myers-Briggs is that it can be used in whatever ways are helpful to you. It provides a base for creating curiosity and interest in getting to know and understand how you and other people in your world tick. When I first discovered the MBTI, the first people I naturally looked at were my family. After all, I live with them all the time. And sometimes it's not easy. Believe me. Would you agree? Once I understood their types, I could get into their shoes, so to speak, because my daughters are way too big for me. Understanding where they were coming from was a life changer. Suddenly, I could see what really should be so obvious to us all, but isn't, was that they were all really different to me. I'd always communicated in my style, using my personality, who I am, and my own unique perception. The MBTI gave me the tools to communicate with them so I could see their own individual types as well. 26 years ago, the recognition of different personality types and temperaments totally changed the way that I parented and made my parenting journey so much easier. I really like my kids, not because of what I think I've done for them, but for who they truly are. My guest and fellow presenter today is Tracy Noon. Tracy and I are lifelong friends. We both have used the MBTI as an essential tool in our business lives and our personal lives, and we are also parents. And we're going to share with you the important and positive aspects that knowing and understanding personality type brings to the parenting journey. Let us look at understanding you and your kids' type and how to align yourself with the other people in your household. Today we're talking about the first preference, introversion and extroversion. Neither is wrong. You can do both. You just prefer one. Introversion refers to a preference for focusing on one's inner thoughts and feelings and finding energy and fulfillment from within. Introverts tend to prefer quiet, solitary activities and may feel drained after socializing for extended periods of time. Extroversion, on the other hand, refers to a preference for focusing on the external world and the people in it. Extroverts are often described as outgoing and energetic, and they draw energy from social interaction and external stimulation. The goal of knowing about personality type is to understand and appreciate differences in people. All types are equal. There is no best type. There are no right or wrong preferences. You can use both. You just innately prefer one. I'm a very different type to Tracy, and we parent differently, and we see the world very differently. But we do understand each other, and we also really understand our kids. And although they might frustrate the hell out of us sometimes, and we really wish that we could make them become more like ourselves, we know we can't. So what we do is lean into what are their strengths and ours, and lean out of what are their weaknesses, and try to hone in on our best ways of communicating with these kids as they grow up and go on with their lives into their adulthood. Hi Trace, welcome.
Hi Kate, lovely to be here with you.
Now, what you and I are going to do today is we're going to discuss what it was like growing up as introverted and extroverted children in our families, and discussing where we found ourselves in life as adults and how the knowledge of personality type really helped us get to know and understand ourselves.
Okay.
So my first question to you is, unbeknownst to you, you were an introvert.
Still am.
Yes. And what was it like growing up as an introvert, and what were your family dynamics?
Yeah. Okay. So so it helps to know that I come from a fairly big family. I'm one of 5 children.
Yep.
And I'm the middle child. So that's a family dynamic there immediately. And I'm an introvert. The family itself is a mixture of introverts and extroverts, but both of my parents were, my mother is much more on the introverted side and my father was much more on the extroverted side. And my siblings are a mixture of the two. So I kind of sat there in the middle, and you're immediately a little bit lost in the middle anyway. And particularly as the youngest were twins, so my parents really had my mother really had her hands full there. I think that I tended to revert into my introversion even more, which meant that, for example, my mother loves to talk about the fact that I was such an easy child because I just entertained myself and I was always in this imaginative kind of fanciful land of my own. But I think really that what was happening is that I was no trouble, and they had, so many other things that they were dealing with that it kind of suited my personality type to withdraw and live in my rich and imaginative world. I also read a lot. I was a huge and avid reader all throughout my childhood and through my teen years. So the dynamic was very functional for me. It worked for me. I don't remember, and I never have really felt lonely. I'm very happy in my own company. On the other hand, the downside of it was that where we were in family situations, which, for example, every night at mealtime, it was very hard for me to be seen and to feel that I was being heard, because everybody talked over the top of each other. And my inclination as an introvert is to sit and listen and be reflective and only speak when I actually have something to say, rather than just go with the flow of the conversation and, feel at ease with that. And of course, by the time I'd reflected and was ready to speak, the conversation had moved on. So
dinner time was over.
So I remember feeling quite frustrated in those social situations that I felt unseen and unheard. But overall, it was a happy childhood in the sense of being an introvert in a mixed family.
Cool.
What
That's
about
great.
you?
Well, I was an extrovert and I was in a totally introverted family when I look back on my childhood. So nobody really went out and did anything. And even as my brothers were growing up, I have 3 brothers, I'm one of 4, the only girl. And I was the one that was always bossing and telling everybody what to do. And I got told that I was too bossy and always loud. And my thing growing up in that kind of environment, we were in a country town too, as was Tracy. And my thing was that I never had anyone to play with. I was constantly looking around. The kids on our street, trouble was I didn't really like half of them, so I actually didn't want to play with those people. So I spent much of my time lying on my bed, bored out of my brain. I just remember always hating weekends because there was no social interaction. I always remember my dad mowing the lawn and me lying on my bed thinking, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? Life was just boring. And so for me, growing up in that kind of environment was really quite stressful, I think, if I look back. And my joy was, of course, Tracy and I were family friends and we would catch up with each other on the weekend. And my joy was going to someone who had a family of 5 and being able to be with people and do that kind of thing. The rest of the week was pretty boring. Now, my advantage of being brought up in an introverted family was my mum and dad were both librarians. So I read a lot of books. I actually think about it and I think had I had an extroverted mother or father who took me out and did a lot of things with me, I would never have had that time to have read those books and to have grown a love of reading that I had, because I was too bored, so I actually had to read. So I kind of look back and go, thank goodness, because I think if I'd had the chance to be a really extroverted child as an adult, I would have been a pain in the backside.
That's interesting. And it's funny, isn't it, how sometimes the being almost forced to go to your opposite, the less natural side, can actually be really good for you. It's the same with my extroversion. I'm not an extreme introvert. I'm only a kind of mild to moderate. I think I'm getting more introverted as time goes by, but which is the opposite of what happens to most people. But I can fake extroversion, or I can, if you like, do extroversion pretty easily if I'm with people that I feel comfortable with. Where I struggle to do extroversion is with actually, there's two extremes. I can either do extroversion with people that I know really well, like you.
Yes.
You know, I can talk and talk and talk and talk. Yep. I can hold the floor. Or with complete strangers. Then I can literally stand up in front of an audience and speak, and I've got no fear whatsoever. But if I'm with people that I know moderately well, then I have a massive introvert kind of cringe thing of what are they thinking about me? Am I making any sense? I care what they think, and yet they're not in my intimate circle. It's a weird
But
thing
it makes
to do
sense
with my...
because you mildly know them, so therefore the sense of judgment is there. But if you're in front of people that you don't know and you're never going to hear any feedback from that, and you're not ever going to want to be in their good books or anything like that, they're strangers. You know, so that makes sense.
Is that the same for you?
No, I love talking in front of people, but it's more, I'm not scared of that. I love it. And in fact, I don't feel judged, probably because I'm talking so much of the time. I don't really worry about it. Many parents ask me, how do I talk to my kids? Do you struggle with this? How well do you really know your child? Knowledgeable communication is the key to successful bonding with your child. This is something I can help you with. I meet with parents all the time around this. So let's chat. Contact me at thepersonalitycoach.com.au. But they're the things that are really important to know and understand about yourself, because I know and understand that I shouldn't talk as much, and I really try hard not to, and I really make an effort to listen to people. But like we say, these things didn't really come into place until later years. So with your friendship groups as you went through school and university, do you have special friends, a few special friends and some others just out there in the mix? How does your friendship group work?
I have a classic introverted friendship group, which is small and high quality. So we've been friends since we were 6.
Yep.
And I've lived in a number of different cities throughout my life. And I always end up with 2 intimate friends in every city that I've lived in, that we, kind of like off my right shoulder and my left shoulder. I always think of, feeling surrounded by 2 people who really care about me, who really know me, who really accept me for who I am. And everybody else is either a welcome guest into that, or they're completely on the outer. So I don't have large. I'm a terrible networker, for example. I don't have a large circle of friends. I've got a smaller, really high quality circle of friends. Classic introversion.
Yes, yeah. Because
what about you? A large circle of friends.
Large circle of friends. I'd like to say they're all really good quality too. But to an introvert, an extrovert often appears to be a bit of a butterfly around
absolutely.
friendships, just dashing up to every flower and saying hi and then moving on. But for me, my friends are really, really important. And even though I do love a wide circle, I consider my wide circle that I have, I'm very fortunate. I'm able to have a fairly good social life. So I spend much of that catching up with that wide circle of people because I really love most of the people that I meet.
It's one of the really interesting things to me about you, Kate. So anytime I contact you, if I ring you, mostly I try not to ring you because I don't like ringing people because I'm an introvert, but if I ring you or if I text you, and it doesn't matter what time of the day it is, you're with someone. And I look at your life and your life exhausts me and I don't live it because I could not do that. I just couldn't bear to spend all day, every day flitting from person to person, from group to group. And I see that you find it really energizing and you love it. And I just go, wow, that's a mystery to me. I am exactly the opposite. I would rather have a few meetings, 1, 2, maximum 3 each day, maximum 3. And then have the rest of the time is restoring myself.
And that's really valuable. And that's really valuable to think about because people are so different. Yet extroverts and introverts actually are really similar in this energy level stuff when you talk about people, because people, that's why we are, introverts do feel the same. All the workshops I run, all the people I talk to need to re-energize. Mm-hmm. And the extroverts that I talk to, I find that I actually don't have many extroverted, really good friends. Most of them are introverts because they make the time to see me. They lock me in. I see them. Whereas the extroverts, we're too busy. We go, see you next time. And then we never catch up for ages because we're too busy flirting.
Well, that's really interesting because almost all of my really good friends, those ones that I talk to you about, almost all of them are extroverts. Mm-hmm. I love being with extroverts. They bring me out of myself. They make me feel, I laugh more. I'm more happy. They help me to process what's going on inside my head, because one of the challenges of being an introvert is that you live your life inside your head. I mean, we all do that, but introverts do it sometimes a little bit too much. And having extroverted friends who love to chat and who, just flit from not just person to person, but flit from topic to topic, I find it really beneficial because I'm able to express my views and hear them out loud and realise where I don't make any sense at all. So I love having extrovert friends. It's really interesting.
Because the value for us, extroverts, is that we've got someone who's grounding, who listens. And also, if we understand ourselves well enough, it also forces us to be a thinker and a listener. Like for me, I go into those conversations knowing that I'm with someone that I need to ask questions of, that I need to hear really well, active listen, not just talk over the top of them. So it's a great learning curve for me too, in the sense of knowing that. But I didn't realise that for many years. I didn't realise that until I knew this, until I knew this stuff type of thing. So when I found that for me, my extroversion really came out when I went to uni, because we lived in a country town. I moved into the city. The first year I was lost because I didn't have any friends, having been in a school where you knew everyone from childhood. That was one of the worst years for me as a person. But once I'd found my friends and I started going out, I don't think I've ever been back home, and I don't think I've read many books, and we're talking 40 years ago. So I really found my niche. That's when I really found who I was as a person. And reflecting back on it, things haven't looked back since. So I actually find country life, as you and I were discussing the other day, I find it very quiet and very depressing for me in a sense when I go back to those places, because I feel overwhelmed by the silence. So for you, where do you feel in your most natural niche now, growing up?
See, that's an interesting question because I live in two worlds. I split my time between Sydney and country South Australia. And when I'm in Sydney, I'm in an internal suburb, right near the city centre. So it's humming. And literally my resting heart rate goes up by up to 10 beats a minute while I'm in Sydney. But I love it. I love the pace. I love the energy. I see all of my friends. I'm much more extroverted in that more throbbing kind of environment. And New York was like that as well. Living in New York, I loved it, but New York was exhausting for me. Whereas Sydney, I can walk to the beaches, I can walk around the harbour, I'll do my daily walks on the harbour. So you can
have time by yourself.
I can have time by myself.
And regain that energy.
And then when I come back to South Australia and I'm down again near the beach, because that's my thing, then it's very quiet, very, very quiet. But that's when I do a lot of thinking. That's when I recharge my battery to go back to Sydney again. So it's for me, and that's why I said I'm not an extreme introvert. So I actually love the combination of the two, and for me that works perfectly. I would not want to have to choose one or the other.
No, for me, my introversion doesn't get any greater, unfortunately. I'm more aware of it. I find that if I know I can go somewhere, I can handle a half a day at home or a day, only if I know I'm going out at night, or only if I'm knowing I'm meeting other people. I can do it. I can sit there and I get on with the chores and things I have to do. But going out and being energized, especially, say, before a podcast like this even, I can't go in cold. I need to have talked to several people before I can come into the conversation, because I'm warmed up. I'm like, I'm on a roll. I'm feeling really good. So often, if before I sit down and work, if I have to work at home, I'll ring someone, talk to them, and it's like it activates my brain. Because extroverts, that's another topic for conversation, because extroverts do think, and their thinking is through their talking. So it really starts the motor type of thing. So just to finish off, when we're talking about understanding ourselves as extroverted and introverted, what impact has that had on you in your life, knowing this information?
I think the main thing is just self-acceptance, not trying to be something that you're not. And I do think, in those early years, where you really want to fit in primary school, particularly in high school, and to an extent university, but in those early years, you just want to fit in and hold your position in the social hierarchy. And so I know that I tried to be what I was not, whereas I think the joy of going to university and going away and finding your own people without those same pressures of childhood. But then as you mature and you learn about these things, for me, it's just self-acceptance. So I know that, like, I can spend a day on my own and literally not speak to another human being, not over the phone, not in person, and I am 100% content. But 3 days of that, and I'll really need that stimulus of conversation. So I know that about myself, and that works for me. And I imagine it does for you too, knowing that you need the company of others.
Yes, well, that really works for me. The other thing that really works for me is understanding introverts. Because what I find when I run workshops too is that extroverts really don't have any understanding. Introverts have all the understanding. They're sitting there watching, hearing, reflecting on everything an extrovert's saying. An extrovert isn't. So for me, the greatest learning for that was understanding my introverted husband and my introverted son and all my introverted friends, and learning how to behave and how to change my behaviours so that I get the best out of the relationships with those people. So that's my greatest learning in that sense, and it's been a really important thing in my life.
Can I ask you a question? Do you mind if I ask you a question?
Go for it, Tracy.
As an extrovert, do you feel judged by introverts?
Oh, very much.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, and that's an interesting question, because we should go into that sometime, because while an introvert is thinking, a lot of the time their thoughts are in their head and their face shows no facial expression.
That's right.
And so I've had several people who are extroverted say to introverted people, you sit there judging me, and you make me feel quite scared when I talk to you. And because it takes time for you to reformulate your answers, to formulate your answers in your head, and we don't get an instant feedback, we sit there thinking, so they're actually not going to say anything to us. They're thinking about what we've thought, what we've said, and then we talk more.
Okay, that makes sense.
So that's a good topic for future podcasts with you and I, because it is really interesting, because I think it's very important for people to know and understand that introverts aren't sitting there judging. Well, sometimes they are.
Well, that is true. Sometimes they are, but more than anything, they're just processing.
Yes.
And waiting till they actually have a contribution that they feel justifies opening their mouth, because the introverts are more inclined to think and then speak.
That's right.
Rather than speak in order to think through their thoughts. So it's not judging you. I love you to pieces.
Oh, well, thank you so much. And thanks for joining me today, Trace. And we're going to have many more of these, so we look forward to chatting again soon.
Thanks, Kate.
Think about it. What was it like for you growing up as a child and a young adult? As a child, where did you live? Where were you born in your family? How did you find your friends? Have you ever discovered how to understand yourself and know who you really are? Have you ever thought about introversion and extroversion as one of the things that might influence the many facets of your life? Learn where you get your energy from. Did you, and do you still get exhausted from overexerting yourself in the external world? Or is the external world a place of constant energy and stimulation? When you can understand what you need to do to energize your true self, you'll have started a journey that will be the best gift you can ever give yourself. Understanding the people around you is the icing on the cake. Thank you for listening to Parenting and Personalities. If you enjoyed this episode, we'd love it if you could leave a rating and a review that would help others learn about the podcast. If you're interested in discovering more about you and your family's personality types, you'll find my book, Who Is This Monster or Treasure in Your House, on Booktopia or Amazon. If you have an episode idea, please send a note to thepersonalitycoach@gmail.com. Many thanks to our producers at Stories and Strategies, and we'll see you next time.
Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.